Finished 2-2. I think a lot would say that it's a fair result because I guess each team could have won it or lost it. This is pretty much the assessment that we could have. What did you make of it as a whole?
I like the way Tottenham played. You know, Antonio Conte, I've been a great admirer of him for many years. When he went to Juventus, the system that he played, you knew exactly where the next pass was going to go. They obviously worked a lot on training about how the shape of the team, the next pass, the philosophy. And whenever he goes to a new club, for the first 3 or 4 weeks, he tries to sort of play the system that the club have been playing. But after about 4 or 5 weeks, he goes back to what he knows best.
Yeah.
And it's 2 up front, 3 central midfield players, 2 wing backs high up the field, and a back 3. And that's what he did against Liverpool. And I thought he did it very well. And they're starting, Son and Kane, to get a great understanding, whether it's running in behind, linking up with each other. They looked a constant threat.
Which we saw, remember, at the beginning of the Mourinho full season. Not so much after he took over Poch, but certainly the first full season that he had. And I was at the game. I was a bit surprised that Klopp and Liverpool took a long time to adjust to what Spurs were doing. I spoke to Konate after the game and he said we had issues in the first half communicating, getting organised. And I was like, okay, but as soon as you saw the lineup, everyone could have said that's how Spurs would play. And you knew they would exploit all the space in behind the high line from Liverpool. And I was a bit surprised it took Liverpool so long to adjust, and that poor Tyler Morton was quite exposed. Yeah. And until they put Milner with him a bit more in front of the back 4, that's where they got a bit more into the game. And they also,
Liverpool, I mean, listen, they're a very good team, and they've got an outstanding right back in Alexander-Arnold who loves to get forward, and he's hard to negate when he starts getting into those areas. The problem for Liverpool, if they don't dominate midfield, Alexander-Arnold's out the game for much of the time. Dele Alli made 2 runs alongside Alexander-Arnold, who doesn't even see them. He reacts far too late. There's one that could have been a penalty, which was the right decision. It wasn't a penalty. But when you see it from another angle, Dele Alli's just run past Alexander-Arnold, and he's like, I'm an attacking right back. I don't have to defend. And that's one of the problems they had as well, because the 2 centre-halves are against the 2 front players, but they're getting no protection of Alexander-Arnold.
There's a few diagonals as well from Dyer towards Sessegnon, who again, I think there's the first time in the first half, Alexander-Arnold just makes it, but it was very, very on the edge.
He's got to switch. You can't just be an attacking right back. He's brilliant at getting crosses in and scoring goals and great to watch. But you also have to be good defensively. And if he's not going to be good defensively, then Liverpool have to adjust their system. They might have to play with an extra defender or a midfield player that covers that space. But they didn't do that against Spurs.
And of course, talking about midfielders, no Thiago Alcantara, no Henderson, no Fabinho. So Fabinho and Thiago both have COVID. Henderson is an injury. No Van Dijk, of course, who also has COVID in front of a Spurs team that the strongest 11 because they've been recovering. They hadn't played for 2 weeks. All the tactical battle between Klopp and Conte, which was fascinating. Klopp being a bit, after the game, saying, well, almost sort of criticising Spurs for using those tactics and playing behind and using those runs. I mean, Spurs created so much that way. Yeah. You can't really blame Conte for putting that game plan together, right?
If you're playing against Liverpool, and we've said it for the last maybe 2 years now, if there's one weakness that Liverpool have, if they don't defend well enough in the front areas and don't defend well enough in the midfield areas, players are going to get time on the ball to pick passes out in behind what is a very high line. Yeah. And at times, Liverpool have to drop off. You can't just be a centre-half and say, I'm going to hope he runs offside. And that's what they did in the game yesterday. And that was the wrong tactic. So Antonio Conte, he looked at Liverpool and said, well, the one way we're going to beat them, we're going to play Song up front with Harry Kane. Harry Kane, you can't keep dropping off. You've got to make forward runs. Song, use your pace to run in behind. 2 centre-halves that haven't played together that often. We can cause them all sorts of problems. And they've also got a fullback that loves to run forward. Or both fullbacks love to run forward.
To be fair,
they've got a young player as the holding midfield player who's not probably going to drop in between the centre-halves and be the same as Fabinho probably. So let's play forward football. Let's make runs in behind them. Let's play the ball forward. And he made Harry Winks look a much better player because suddenly, instead of passing square and backwards, which I've been criticising him for quite some while, he picked out forward passes.
And was really good in it. I've got a bit of an issue with the way Liverpool set up. Just because I'm a big fan of Tyler Morton. He's 19. He's got a great future ahead of him. You could see the way he plays, the vision he has. He's a confident kid, no problem. But this is a game where you knew Spurs would not have played for 2 weeks, so they would go straight in on the front foot because they would have all that energy. And maybe tire out towards the end of the game, but certainly at the beginning you knew they were going to come and be aggressive and all of that. Okay, no problem. You know this coming. You probably know as well this is the tactic they're going to use. And certainly when you see the team sheet an hour and 15 before the game, you go like, okay, it's Dele Alli and no Lucas Moura, which means it's Son and Kane centrally. And then you know they're going to try to hit those balls. I don't know. Tyler Morton starting a game like this was always, I thought, a big gamble from Klopp.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't actually have anybody to pick up. I think because the way that Spurs were playing in midfield with one holding midfield, Ndombele was playing to the sort of right of that, and then Dele Alli was playing to the left, making forward runs. It was up to Morton and maybe Alexander-Arnold and the centre-halves to see the runs of Dele Alli. Who was going to pick him up? If it was going to be the midfield player, he had to make that decision early, but they didn't make the decision because Dele Alli was making runs free at times just into an empty area and should have done better with a couple of the chances. But yeah, it was a big game for him, but I don't think he played particularly badly. The game just bypassed him in certain ways because of the way the two teams were set up.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.